Hey everybody, it's your girl JLove81 and you're watching Chris, the old ass retro gamer.
Hey everybody, Chris the old ass retro gamer here, back once again with a long overdue video in the Diamonds in the Rough series. Today we're talking about Sega Genesis. So I want to say back in October I did a poll on my Facebook page and I was asking, hey, if I did a new Diamonds in the Rough video, because I've been planning on doing another one for like the last year and a half, 2 years, what console would you want me to talk about? I said either the Nintendo, the NES, or the Sega Genesis. And Sega Genesis won by a wide margin. Like, there was no contest. Finally got off my butt, decided we're going to start this series back up again. I'm going to make one for almost every single console that I collect for. Bet your bottom dollar. It's happening. Get ready. They're coming. So what do I mean when I say Diamond in the Rough? A Diamond in the Rough is a game that does not get a lot of attention. People don't talk about it. People don't give it the time of day. Yet it is still really good and deserves your attention. And I'm here to tell you right now that these 10 games that I have stacked up here are ones that you need to have in your collection and you need to play it right away if you have not already. So here are 10 of my favorite Diamonds in the Rough for the Sega Genesis. Sega! Ranger X. This is a side-scrolling run-and-gun, sort of like Contra, but kind of quirky in its own way. So you play as this big robot suit that has like a robot sled that follows you around, and you can float. So instead of just running along the ground, if you press up on the control pad, you will actually go airborne and you can shoot enemies down that are in the sky, and you can land on this sled thing of yours and use that to power up your attacks. And you just take out wave after wave of enemy, like pretty much every side-scrolling game ever made. Crazy graphics in this game. At first, it's kind of like, it's alright, it's decent, it's like a later Genesis release, so yeah, you expect to see some cool stuff, but later on, it starts to look like some of the things you would see in Castlevania 4, with like rotating barrel rooms that you're running through and all that kind of stuff. Huge boss battles. I mean, they're massive, and the music is super catchy, and uses the 6-button controller really, really well. I remember picking this up back in the day and playing the hell out of it, going like, wow, if every Genesis game was like this, I'd probably play my Genesis more than my Super Nintendo. Didn't happen, but what can you do? Really, really cool concept. It feels like a game made by Treasure. How about that? Even though this is a first-party game from Sega. If you're a fan of like mechs and Power Rangers and all that kind of stuff, this game is right up your alley. It is super creative and I highly recommend it. Sega! Zero Tolerance. Did you know that there was a first-person shooter on the Sega Genesis? No? Well, I'm here to tell you there is one. That's actually not half bad. Sure, the Genesis couldn't handle 3D and all that kind of polygonal rotations and scaling and all that kind of stuff that the Super Nintendo was able to do pretty easily. In order to work around that, the makers of this game shrank the play field really small on the screen. Made the rest of it a heads-up display. It has a map, it has your ammo, it has the character you're playing as, all the pertinent information to play the game. And you know what? It works. There is not a whole lot of slowdown. I mean, every once in a while when there's a ton of characters on screen, yeah, it does. The maps are designed extremely well. Lots of different weapons to find. A bunch of different characters to choose from, great sound effects and voice samples as well. But the best thing about this game is you are playing a first-person shooter on the Genesis and it doesn't suck. Yes, it is simple and, bare bones because back in the day, Doom was the big game, and compared to what first-person shooters are nowadays, yes, that does seem like a basic bitch, but this works really, really well and it is entertaining as hell. So if you're looking for a really challenging first-person shooter on a console you never thought you'd ever find one, check this one out. Sega! Sub-Terrania. So, have you ever played Solar Jetman on the Super Nintendo? If you were to take Solar Jetman for the NES and combine it with Sinistar, that's Sub-Terrania's. You're this ship that is going through all these different mines, and you're rescuing trapped miners that are being attacked by these aliens that are trying to take over. You have gravity effects that you have to deal with. Your ship is constantly running out of fuel, so you have to look for fuel depots. You got power-ups. You have icons that you can pick up to transform your ship into something that can go underwater, because there are underwater levels here, and they are pretty fun. Huge bosses. Like, there is this thing that looks like why I brought up Sinistar to begin with, that looks just like Sinistar in the middle of the level at one point that you have to take out. Creepy as hell. You have to figure out ways to blast through walls where the miners are trapped behind. It is really difficult, but once you get the hang of it, it is so much fun. And this game has absolutely fantastic music. It sounds like something that came out of a Super Nintendo. So if you are into those type of Sinistar / Solar Jetman type games, if you have nostalgia for those two games, this is a spiritual successor that you will definitely want to pick up. Sega Championship Pro-Am. I do believe in the recent Nefarious West video where he was game hunting in Colorado with E.C. Myers. While they were out game hunting, they found a loose card of this and they were like, did you even know that there was a port of RC Pro-Am for the Sega Genesis? Yes. This is a port of RC Pro-Am, which came out on the NES back in the 80s. They just renamed it Championship Pro-Am. And yes, this was developed by Rare.
Oh, thank God.
So how does this hold up when compared to the NES version? It is exactly the same, just tweaked in the sound and graphics department. You're a remote control car and you are racing around on tracks. There are speed boosts on the tracks, there are weapons to pick up, there are upgrades to your car like tires and engines, there's nitro boosts that you can get, missiles that you can pick up that give you offensive capabilities to shoot at the other cars on the track to slow them down so you can pass, and the goal, just like every other racing game out there, is to come in first place. It is done in an isometric view, which does take a little getting used to, I will admit, and the steering is a little sensitive, but it plays exactly the same as you remember, which is a very good thing because for those who, like me, grew up playing RC Pro-Am a lot, this is like second nature at this point. All the different kinds of tracks and the obstacles that they throw at you, there's oil slicks and puddles and stuff like that to slow you down, throw you off, you'll get destroyed a lot. And once you do not place at least in third, game over. It is a very, very fun game. That is a real cool upgrade of the original NES game. Like Nefarious West said, who knew that this came out on the Genesis? Well, you know what? I didn't either. I found this while surfing on eBay just looking at random games, and I was like, what? Need that right now. Glad I picked it up. Sega Game Ground. This is a port of an arcade game which I have never seen, never heard of, never knew about. Picked this up in a lot from a friend of mine on Facebook, and I was really, really glad that I did because not too long after picking this up, GameSack talked about it in one of their videos, and I said, wow, that is pretty cool. I'm glad that I own that. It's kind of a weird version of a shmup. Although it is not a scrolling screen, it is like one screen at a time type of a shooter where you have the selection of 3 different characters to start off with. Each has their own signature weapon and ability. You are looking for people to pick up to add to your party, and you will find these little icons that represent a new character. You have to touch them and bring them to the exit. Well, there are enemies in between you and the exit, and you need to take them out. Some of them are on the high ground, some of them are on the same level as you, and each person has their own way of taking out things that are higher than them and the ones that are at ground level. And each new character that you add on has new abilities of their own. And if one of the characters dies, you have the ability to pick them back up with the other characters and bring them to the exit to bring them back into your party. But once all of your characters are dead, game over. It's strange, it's different, it's unique, and I don't think I've ever played anything like this before, and I was super glad that I did pick this up because once I started playing it, I couldn't put it down. It's a really cool group of characters that you can play as in this game, cool environments to play through, really catchy music, and it's just simple fun. Never even heard of this game back in the day when I was going to Funkoland all the time. Knew nothing about it. So, super glad this is in my collection, and you need to have it in yours as well. Sega The Immortal. This is a port of a computer game, I think maybe a Mac game from back in the day. It was ported to the NES and then to the Sega Genesis. I had the NES game back in the day, loved it, even though it is extremely hard and frustrating. I played it all the time regardless. When the Genesis version came out, I wasn't really interested because I was like, I've already played that game. But I found out way later that the NES version was heavily censored from what the computer version was. The Genesis one was not. So when I found that out, picked it up, and take a look at this. Yeah. So this is an isometric fantasy action adventure game, and you play as this wizard who is looking for his missing master in these dungeons. There's trolls, there's goblins, there's slime puddles that will eat you alive. Everything in this game is out to kill you, even the floor. And I am not kidding. Big thing about this game is it's all about trial and error. Once you figure out how to pass something, I'm sure you have died 500 times trying to figure it out. Once you do, it will be ingrained in your memory, just like it's still ingrained in mine from back in the 80s, to help you continue. There's 8 levels to get through. The combat isn't that complicated. All it really is holding one button down and pressing left and right on the control pad to dodge the swings of your enemy. And once they run out of stamina, then it's your turn. You hold on another button and you can swing back and forth to attack them. It's really easy once you get the hang of it. The only thing that really changes over the course of the game is the speed that the enemies attack. It's still kind of fun even though it's really simple. But the best part of this game is the adventure aspect of it. As you travel through these dungeons, you come across all these different characters. Some will impede your progress, some will help. You find all these weird items that seem to have no bearing on anything, but then once you realize what they're going to be used for to complete a specific task, it's like, oh wow, okay, did not realize that. That's clever. I'm still going to tell you guys, this game is hard as hell. There's traps in the floor in almost every single level, and you have to figure out, basically on your own, unless you can find a map, how to circumvent these traps and get around them, because once you fall into one, it's guaranteed death, because the rhythm you need to rock your way out of it never works, at least for me. To tell you how often I played this game, when I went to capture the footage for this, I still remember the patterns of the traps. Told you I played this a lot when I was a kid. The music is super catchy, the graphics are really nice, and once you get to the very end, holy crap, that finale is absolutely insane. So if you played the Immortal for the NES, you know what to expect. But if you want to get the full experience, get the Genesis version. This has everything that version was missing. Plus the graphics and sound have been upgraded a bit. Sega! In Sector X. Of course there had to be at least one legit shmup in this list. And Sector X was another game I knew nothing about back in the day. I used to go to Funkoland all the time, and I was always testing out all the different games that they had on their shelves. Never played this before. Never even heard of it. So this is very similar to the Darius series, where everything that you fight in those games are robotic fish. This one is all about, as you probably guessed from the title, Insectoid. You play as somebody who looks like the Wasp from the Marvel movies, and yes, everything you're fighting is a robotic bug. But that's the charm of this game, is seeing what kind of designs the makers of the game came up with to bastardize what these insects look like to make them robotic. I was always waiting to see what they were going to come up with next for the new insect I was going to end up fighting on whatever stage I was on. The environments are really cool and creative because since you're so tiny and the robots are tiny, you're flying through environments that you would normally take for granted because you're so large comparatively to an insect. You're flying through like hornets' nests and through like the bushes and all this kind of stuff. It's really, really cool. The music is catchy. The game is hard as hell, but it's just hard enough to not make you want to rage quit, want to keep on coming back and playing it again to do better, like every good game should. The power-ups are nothing to write home about. They're just really generic. And some might say the game looks really simple, but this I do believe was one of the earlier Genesis games. You can't fault it for that. If you just want a really fun, simple shmup that nobody really talks about, Sector X is the one for you. Sega! Asterix and the Great Rescue. Asterix is a comic book character, I do believe from France, that no one in America knows anything about. I know certain games have come out in this series for various consoles. None of them do very well because, like I said, the license isn't something that we're familiar with over here. Doesn't mean the games aren't good. This one's actually really fun. You play as either Asterix or his friend Obelix, and they basically control exactly the same. One is just smaller than the other. And you go through all these really colorful environments just trying to get to the exit. And you're out looking for the kidnapped friends of the main characters. Turns out Julius Caesar's got them.
Et tu, Brute? Am I using that right?
So you're taking out Romans left and right. I'm Italian, I should be offended, but I'm not. There's some light combat involved, but most of it is just puzzle platforming. Your basic attack is just a short-range punch, but you can find these potions that'll give you projectile attacks, which are very, very useful. But it controls really well. It has a really unique art style, which I really dug, and is really charming. I remember seeing Cygnus Destroyer talk about this in one of his videos, and I was like, that looks kind of interesting, and I've always been curious about these Asterix games. So I went and found a copy of it on eBay, super cheap. This is a lot of fun and is really quirky and unique, and I enjoyed the hell out of that, even though I still don't know who the hell Asterix is, which says something. I'm not familiar with this license, but the strength of this one game makes me want to be. Sega! Mazen Saga Mutant Fighter. Now this is a game. I picked this up back in the day based on the strength of the cover art. I was huge into anime when this game came out. I did not even realize at the time that this was actually based on an anime or a manga called Mazinger Z. And it is one of those hybrid games. There are two different play styles in here. It is a beat 'em up and it is a one-on-one fighting game. So for the most part, you're gonna be playing the beat 'em up stuff. Your characters are actually pretty tiny, but everything is animated so well, and the combat is so satisfying and fun. No issues with the combat at all. Different enemy types to take out. Each of them has their own weaknesses that you need to take advantage of. You do have a super power-up attack where you swing your sword in all these different directions at once, and it does drain a little bit of your health, but no big deal. There are plenty of health icons around to refill your energy. Lots of really cool environments to play through, different styles, different types. It's all basically cityscapes and stuff like that, but everything is varied and it looks really cool. You got mini boss battles in these side-scrolling beat-em-up levels. Remind me a lot of what you had to deal with in Contra Hardcore. And then once you complete those side-scrolling beat-em-up levels, it turns into a one-on-one fighting game, and your characters are about half the size of the screen. You end up fighting like a bigger version of the boss that you just fought at the end of the beat-em-up level. All the different attacks that you can do are dependent on what direction you're pressing on the D-pad and what button you press. Those sections are kind of hard because the characters are so slow and lumbering, and you don't really have a lot of range, so the enemies usually do, and that's kind of a problem, but they are still fun. Graphics are fantastic, the music is catchy, and it is a ton of fun. This is another one of those, if you like Power Rangers or anime, you're gonna eat this up. I highly recommend this. This is one of the most fun games I have in my collection right now. Sega! Todd's Adventures in Slime World.
What?
Yes, I said it. This game is called Todd's Adventures in Slime World.
Damn, that's crazy.
This is a port of a game that, if you can believe it, came out for the Atari Lynx.
That's nuts.
And that is one of my favorite games for that console. This game is an adventure platformer. So you crash on this planet made of slime, and you have to go through all these underground caverns that are covered in it. And there are creatures down there that shoot the slime. When you kill them, they explode into slime. The slime will kill you. So there's a really cool mechanic in this game that, yeah, there's health icons you can pick up if you're hurt, but once you start getting covered in the slime, it will start to turn your character green, and the darker green you are, the worse off you are. And you need to find water puddles to wash yourself off in. There are also these gems that you can find. Some are blue, which are points. Some are red, which will actually heal you. But if you shoot the red ones, they will explode into slime and will probably kill you. One of the best things about this game is the secrets. The levels are designed so well and the secrets are hidden so well that you might just be like trying to jump from one ledge to the next, and you might touch the ceiling and you'll catch it and be able to climb, and you'll find a secret area where there's lots of points, there's lots of items you can find to upgrade your character. There's like a slime shield and a rocket pack to help you launch out of like really deep chasms. Your weapon, which is kind of funny to me, is a water gun, but the water destroys the bad guys, which is exactly what you need. And every difficulty is a completely different maze that you need to make your way through, which is awesome. The game is just flat out fun. That's why I love it on the Lynx, and being able to play it on my television is even better. Everything about it is just bigger and more likable. And one of the best things about this game is it has a two-player co-op mode. You can either play against each other or you can play together to work your way out of the caves. Either way, this game is a blast. When I was capturing the footage for this, I was like, okay, I'll play the game for about 5 minutes and get some footage of everything that you can do in the game, and I ended up beating it. Out of all of these games, this one is the most enjoyable to me. I play this one so much on either the Lynx or on the Genesis that I would consider this one of the best games I have in my collection, at least for me. I find this game so enjoyable, I can't even describe it. So there you have it, 10 of my favorite diamonds in the rough for the Sega Genesis. What are some games that you consider to be diamonds in the rough for the Sega Genesis? Let me know in the comments below. I look forward to hearing from each and every one of you on this topic. And I plan on having more diamonds in the rough videos in the near future. The next one will probably be on the NES. I plan on doing one for the Super Nintendo, definitely one on the Dreamcast. Like I said, every single console that I own, there's going to be a diamond in the rough video for it, including part 2s for the ones that I have already done, like the Xbox, the PlayStation 2, and the PS1. So definitely keep an eye out for those, because there's going to be a lot of them coming in 2019. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks so much for subscribing and following me for all these years, and until next time, I am Chris, the old-ass retro gamer, signing off.